Hey coders, welcome to my channel and to this series where we are building PHP based full stack web application for a real estate business, where you get to see the list of properties available in the market currently to be sold or to be rented out. So this is probably, I think, video number 14 that we are currently working on. In our previous video, what did we do? Yeah, we made these two pages dynamic, to buy and to rent. And I left you with a sort of homework to convert this search bar and this sort by elements into macros, because these two elements get repeated at two places, to buy and to rent. These two pages contain both of these elements, so we are going to convert them into macros. So I asked you to give it a shot on your own, and if you have, congratulations, but if you haven't, we are going to pick up from there. So let's go to our editor. Okay, so let's start with the rent.twig file. So this is where we were, and the job is to convert this div into a macro, or rather let's convert this form into a macro. And then the other thing that we have to do is we are going to convert this div, which contains a span element, which basically acts as a title, and then we have this select element. So we are going to convert them into macros as well. So let's start with this search form. So let's copy this part and comment this out for the time being. Let's go to the macros. So let's create another macro. Let's give it the name search form. And within these two blocks, let's paste back the whole form. Now let's remove this parameter for the time being, even though eventually we are going to need one parameter. But let's ignore this fact for the time being and save it. And let's go to the rent.twig. And over here, what we are going to do is, so we have to do something like this. Where did we brought in the macro? Yeah, from macros.twig import card. So this statement is used when you want to individually import certain elements. But later you will see that this particular page, the rent and the buy, both of these pages are going to need more than one macro from that file. So instead what we are going to do is that, just to show you the other way how to import the whole macros file, let's comment this out and let's go to the top, even though it's not mandatory to import something at the top, but because we are going to use macros throughout the page, so it's better to import it at the top. So over here, let's use another command, import. Now this one requires the template name. So in our case, it's called macros.twig. Okay, so now over here, we have to give it a name. So the name that we are going to give it is macros. So this way we don't have to use this twig with everything. And this one will act as a kind of an object, because we will use the dot notation to access its individual macros. So save, and now since there is no this statement from macros.twig import card, so now over here this will create problems. So we have to prepend it with macros.card. Now we are telling that this card is actually a macro defined in this macros file. You can use any name over here. It doesn't have to match with this macros.twig file, but I think this is more appropriate. Okay. So now let's come back here in the search div and use the macros dot, the name that we gave is search form. Okay, so this will again paste back this whole form over here. So let's go to the browser and see if we have broken anything or if everything is working out fine. Refresh, and we can still see this, so that means it's working fine. Now let's do the same for the buy page as well, or shall we continue with this rent page first? So let's go to the buy page, because then it will be clear that why do we need a parameter over here. So let's open the buy.twig file as well. And okay, so in this page, I am going to continue this approach, importing individual macros separately, so that we see the both approaches, how to import the whole macros file and how to see individual macros from the macros file. Okay, so let's go up. For the first thing that we have to do is comment this out, and over here, let's say from template is macros.twig import the name is search form, and over here search form and parenthesis. Okay, let's refresh once more. Now let's go to buy page. Okay, so we can still see the search form, so this thing is working fine as well. Now the reason why I said we are going to need a parameter for this macro is, let's go back to the form So it's in the macros. Now, if you notice over here, we are placing in the same form for both pages, to buy and to rent. But once we click on the search button over here, so they are going to go to different controllers. And that means both of these forms are going to have different URL over here. And we are going to pass that URL as a parameter. So let's assume that we have a parameter URL, or let's make it page, because we are not going to pass the whole URL. So what we are going to do over here is double curly brackets, because we are eventually going to place this variable over here. So we need, and because this is a Twig variable, so we need these two curly brackets, okay? But the first part is static, so double curly brackets, sorry, the static and string, it's string, therefore the single quotations, because we have to make sure these quotations does not interfere with this outer quotations. So two separate types of quotations. Okay, so we are going to start with the domain URL. So realtor-backend public, and this part is common for both of the pages, to buy and to rent. Then we have for this page it's buy.html, and for the rent it's rent.html. So this part is different. So let's use this concatenation symbol, the Twig concatenation symbol, and now bring in the page. This is a variable. So this will either contain the string buy or the string rent. Then again concatenate it with .html. So when the search form is inserted for the to buy page, the action will be domain, then / realtor-backend / public. If it's to buy page, it's going to be buy.html. If it's to rent page, it's going to be rent.html. And over here, because this is a form, so we are submitting a form, so we have to define the method over here as well, which is going to be post. There is one more thing that we have to change over here is, if you notice, the input type over here is mentioned as button. Now, if we use the input type button, then the form cannot be submitted. So we have to change it to, we can either use a button of type submit, or we can use input type submit. So let's change it from button to submit. Now this form can be submitted, but now the color of this button will be changed from this blue color to the default color, because the CSS that we have defined is for the buttons, not for the input type submit. So this is changed, but we will fix it later. Let's refresh. And now you can see the color is gone, because now this thing is no longer a button. It's an input of type submit. But the advantage is that now the button could be submitted. Now if we inspect this page, now if you notice, this part is empty, because where we are using the macros, we haven't passed any parameter. So we have to fix this part. So let's go to the buy page first, and over here pass in a string just called buy, and let's go to the rent one and pass in the string rent. Now let's refresh and let's go to the developers tools. Now if you notice, it has inserted the word rent over here. So now this URL is complete. And likewise, if we go to buy and developers tools, and you can see the word buy over here. Okay, so this part has been fixed. Now, obviously, we have to define the logic which is going to connect with the database, but we are going to define that logic in a bit. Let's fix the other macro, which is related to this sort by feature. Okay, so now we can delete this. Let's go to the buy and again delete this form. Now we have to work on defining this sort by div. So I am going to cut this span plus select, copy, and then comment them out. Let's go to the macros and define another macro. Name is sort element. Let's remove the param. Paste it over here. Now the thing is this, if you notice over here, I have mentioned the name equals sort. Well, it's supposed to be class equals sort. I don't know why I have put it name over here. Probably I was working on converting it into React or something. I don't know why. So anyways, we have to change it back to this sort name. Class name is sort. Because using this class name, then in our JavaScript, we can access this select element. Now let's go to the rent. Now because for the rent, we are using the whole, we are importing the whole macros.twig file. So let's come down over here and let's comment this whole part, span and select. And in the body, let's say macros dot, the name that we gave was sort element. Save. Now let's go to the buy, and over here, since we are importing individual macros, so that means first of all we have to import it. The name is macros.twig. Sorry, we were supposed to use from macros. So from macros.twig, import, the name is search element. Sorry, not search element, sort element. And then over here, sort element. We don't have to prefix this one because over here we are individually importing the macros. Okay. Now let's go to the browser, refresh, and we can see this element here. Now let's go to the torrent, and we can still see this over here. So that means everything is working fine. If we like, we can go to our CSS and fix this color back as well. So let's go to the CSS files. So over here we have written search form input type is button. Now change it to from button to submit. Let's refresh. No, nothing. It's not taking effect. Let's go to the to buy. Let's go to the developer tools and yeah, so we were getting cache data. Close it. Okay. So this is buy. Let's go and check the rent one, and the color is black. Okay. We are done with the look and feel of both of these elements. Now let's start thinking about the logic that will make it functional. For the searching functionality, we are going to involve the backend. But for the sorting functionality, I'm planning to do it everything in the front end. Because for the sorting functionality, no matter what option we choose, in any case, we will have this whole data to reorganize. So the task is just the reorganization. The data itself remains the same, and all of the properties needs to be displayed in the browser. But for the searching option, the data might change as well. For example, if we are just interested in the properties with 2 bedrooms, then some of these properties we don't need to display. For example, this property, it has 1 bedroom. So obviously we don't need to display it. And this one has 3 bedrooms, so we don't need this either. This one as well. So the data changes as well. Therefore, for the searching functionality, we are going to involve the backend. But for the front end, everything is going to be done through JavaScript once the data has already been brought in when we clicked on this link. And the reason for doing this sorting logic solely through front end is this way we can avoid the network communication with the back end. And this not only improves the efficiency at the front end, but also at the back end for the rest of the user. So if there is less communication, less request with the back end, then the rest of the responses could be quick as well. Therefore, this is a good decision to perform this functionality through front end. Now, if you have decided to go this route, then we have one problem, which is even though we are seeing these cards over here, in order for JavaScript to reorganize them as per one of the choices chosen over here, we don't have any data. The data, if you remember, the variable data which is displaying all of these cards is actually being received by the Twig. Now if you remember, the way templating engine works is that they render the page, and there are 2 steps to rendering any page. The first step is to convert the Twig file into PHP file, and from PHP file, the HTML code is generated and only that code is sent to the browser. So by the time this page gets displayed in the browser, it's static. In the browser, we don't have any variable name data through which we are displaying all of these cards. So we have to make sure that at the end of the rendering, the JavaScript also has a copy of that data based on which we can reorganize these cards. Now, in order for that to happen, we have to kind of make Twig send the data to our JavaScript. So to do that, what we are going to do is, so this is our Twig.rend.twig file. So over here in this block, which is displaying the contents of this rend.twig file, at the end we are going to attach this script tag, and over here we are going to define a constant named data. This data is JavaScript data, and this is going to receive data from the Twig or from the PHP. So in order to do that, what we are going to do is that we are going to use these double curly brackets, because we are going to use this variable which is, where is it? This one. So we are going to, so this data, this is PHP data, and we are assigning it to JavaScript data. But in order to actually make this happen, we have to apply some filters, because currently this is in the PHP format. We have to encode it into JSON object. Only then it could be properly understood by JavaScript. So the filter is, and for the filter, we are going to use this bar symbol, and the filter that we are applying is JSON_encode. So this JSON encode is going to encode the data, which is an associative array, which is an array, and each element of that array is an associative array. So we are converting it into a JSON object. And then we also need to make sure that since the Twig by default applies HTML skipping, so we have to ensure that that HTML skipping is also not applied. Otherwise, a lot of characters will get converted into HTML encoding. And when JavaScript reads them, it will teach all of those characters as individual characters rather than HTML skipped characters. So we are going to say send it in the raw format, that is without applying any skipping. Now just to give you an idea, let's comment this out for the time being. And just to tell you that this data doesn't exist when the page is being displayed in the browser, let's refresh it. So this is rent one. Let's open the developers tools, and over here just write down data, and it says data is not defined over here. When in this rent.twig we have this data from where we are generating all the cards through this property variable. Okay, so now what we are going to do is that we are going to uncomment it. And let's refresh this. Let's go to the developers tools and write down data now. And you can see we are getting an array of 14 elements, each of which is a property. And this is the data regarding that particular property. So now we are successfully receiving the data from the PHP to front end, that is the JavaScript. Now, if this is the route that is using some constant, we are going to transfer data from the backend to the front end. Then we have to ensure that this script in which we are defining this data, this script always executes before this script.js file executes, because this is where we will define the logic which is going to manipulate this data variable. In our current state, this is already taken care of, because if you notice, we are defining this script tag within the which block? This block, view content block, which is part of this layout.twig file. So the rent.twig file extends this layout.twig file, and at the bottom of this layout.twig file, we have linked our script.js file, and this block sits before that part. Basically we have script.js file in the footer of the layout.twig file. So this part will come before that footer. Therefore, we don't have to worry about anything. That part has already been taken care of. However, there is other way to go about, which is instead of creating a constant in this rent.twig file, we can attach it to window object. This window object is made available to us through JavaScript engine, and it's always there and it's accessible throughout the browser. So basically each page of the browser. Okay, so if we define this data as a property on this window object, then it's available in all the JavaScript files over here as well. So if this is the route that you want to take, then this is another way to approach it. So let's go with this route, and now let's go to the JavaScript and let's define a function. Let's make it sortProperties. To this, we are going to pass two parameters. The first one is going to be, now because this sorting is going to happen in 4 different ways based on the price. Now in the database, we have 2 columns, price and rent. Rent goes with the properties which are available to be sold on the rent, and the price goes with the properties which are available to be bought. Therefore, when we are working with the rentable properties, we have to work with a column named rent. And when we are working on the properties available to be sold, we have to work with a column named price. The rest of the logic is going to be same. So what we are going to do is that we are going to pass first parameter, which will tell us whether we have to work with the rent column or the price column. So let's give it the name type, which will be property type. So let's make it property type. Then the second one is going to be, we have to let the sortProperties function know that we want to sort the properties from low to high prices, or high to low properties, or low to high number of bedrooms, or high to low number of bedrooms. So we have 4 options. So we have to let our function know out of these 4 options which option we have chosen. We don't need to apply this $sign because we are not in the PHP. We are with the JavaScript now. Okay, so now the second element, let's give it the name, second param, let's give it the name value. And over here, let's just console log window.data to make sure that we have this data available in this function as well. Window.data. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to do is that we are going to link the sortProperties function with the select element, HTML select element. So for that, let's open macros.twig. So this is a sort element, So we have to get a reference to this select statement using the class name sort. Const sort element document.query selector, and the name is sort. Now this sort element will only exist on these two pages, to buy and to rent. For the rest, this sort element doesn't exist. Like for the home page, we don't have any search bar or the sorting element. So we have to make it conditional. If sort element, then sort element dot add event listener. In fact, let's not make it complicated using the if statement. What we are going to do is that let's go back to the macro, and over here we are going to use the approach that we took for the properties. So over here we are going to attach another attribute which is going to be on change, and over here let's call the function sortProperties. Now since this sortProperties requires two parameters, the first one is going to be the first one will let us know whether the sorting is going to be performed on the rent column or the buy column. So that means we have to pass a parameter for this sort element macro as well, because this thing is select statement is defined within this macro. So this macro needs to have that information, so that from there that information could be passed to this sortProperties function as well. So let's make it page, and the value of this page will either be buy or rent that we did for the another macro, this macro, search form macro. So we are passing this one as the first parameter. We have to enclose it within the double curly brackets because this is the page is a variable. Now for the second parameter, what we are going to use is we are going to pass this dot value. So this refers to the select statement, the select element as a whole, and dot value will represent one of its values. So whichever value is selected, that will be passed in as a second parameter. We have to first of all go and fix this part, and then we are going to call this one. Okay, so let's go to the rent page first, and over here copy this, paste it over here. Now let's go to the buy page. Let's delete this. Copy this from the search form and paste it in the sort element. Paste. Okay. So let's go to our JavaScript, and over here, let's comment this out for the time being. Let's console log the prop type and console log the value. Let's refresh. Okay, so there is no console log over here. That's because this change event hasn't been triggered. So let's trigger that change event by changing its values. Okay, so now we have got something. It says rent is not defined where did I forget to put in the second parameter? Oh, I see. Okay, so let's go back to the browser, the editor. Now if you remember, we are passing this one as a Twig data as well. However, we know this is not Twig data, this is DOM data. So we have to take it out of these curly brackets. I hope this has resolved the issue. Let's refresh. Okay, change. We have to click something for the change event to get triggered. Okay, the rent is not defined again. Rent is not defined. What do you mean by rent is not defined? Okay, I think this rent needs to be in quotations. Maybe that's the problem. Okay, so let's enclose this within single quotations. Refresh and trigger the change event. Good, so now we are getting both of these, the rent page and the selected choice, the selected value from the select statement, which is bed ascending. Let's trigger it once more from price high to low, price descending. Okay, so we are getting this. Now let's uncomment this thing to ensure that we are getting this data as well. Window.data, refresh, trigger the change event, and we are getting the data as well. So now we have got everything to work on the logic itself. Okay, let's delete. Now instead of keep writing window.data all the time, let's simplify it. Data equals or assign window.data const. Okay. Now the first thing that we are going to do over here is sort the data. Then we will think about how to modify or update the cards based on this data. So for that, we are going to use switch statement, and we are going to pass this value, and we are going to define 4 cases. So the 4 cases is going to be, let's go to the macros, these values: price ascending, price descending, bed ascending, and bed descending. So case price ascending, let's put in break statement as well, because all of them will require break as well. Now I have copy pasted it 3 more times, and let's change the values. Price descending, then the third one is bed ascending, and the last one is going to be bed descending. Okay, now within the body of each of these cases, let's make data.sort, because it's an array, so we can directly apply the sort method, and the sort method takes an associative array, an arrow function or a callback to sort this data according to the logic, whatever logic we pass to it. So this anonymous function takes 2 parameters. Let's call them A and B. And it's going to be just 1 line, so we don't need to put it in curly brackets either. Now these 2 variables are going to represent 2 different properties. So they will compare 2 different properties, but we know these properties, A and B, are actually objects with lots of properties. So we are either going to work on its rent column or the price column. So we have to say A dot, then this value, either it's rent or property, rent or buy. Okay, we also have to make it. So let's define another variable const column. So what we are going to say, if prop type equals rent, in that case, let's pass the rent, otherwise pass the price. Now this column either contains rent or price. So over here, what we are going to say, A dot column minus B dot column. So this column will be either rent or price. Now we know these are rent or price, both are strings. We need numbers. So we are going to enclose it into number. We are passing this as a parameter to this number function. Number object. So this is a constructor, number constructor, which converts any string into a number. Okay. So this is for the ascending logic. Now copy and paste it over here and change the value, see object positioning from B dot column to B dot column minus A dot column. So this will bring them into descending order. Now for the third one, let's paste it back. However, this is going to be, instead of column, this is going to be bedrooms, because this object also has a property named bedrooms. And this one is also going to be bedrooms. For the last one, paste B dot bedrooms, A dot bedrooms. We are getting this complaint that column is declared but its value is never used. We have used, okay, sorry. So if we use A dot column, then that means we are saying this A variable, the object A, has a property named, exactly named COL, column. However, that was not our intention. Our intention was whatever is stored over here, that should be the property name that should be used. So if that is our intention, we don't have to use this dot notation, because we are accessing now property dynamically. So we have to enclose it within these square brackets. So that's why we were getting the complaint that it's never used, because it actually was never used. Okay. Let's remove this dot. Oh, this bedrooms is fine because we have this property and that's what we were looking at. Okay, so the complaint is gone. Now what we can do is, outside this switch statement, we again want to console log the data to see if there has been changes in the organization of the properties. So this is data. We need one more copy. Let's place it before this sorting part as well. Paste. Let's refresh. Make the change event. So we have selected bedrooms, low to high. Window is not defined. The spelling mistake. Let's refresh. Now let's trigger some event, bedrooms high to low. So if we choose this bedroom high to low, then over here, instead of first seeing bedroom 1, we will see bedroom 3. Okay, so let's click on it. And now let's go over here. Now we are seeing 2 console log of the array. This is saying property ID 4, 20, 28. I remember just one thing. Let's show you the problem. Now if you notice over here, this is also saying exactly property ID 4, 20, 28, 5, 7. So you must be thinking that probably there is something wrong with the sorting logic. Well, actually it's not. Just to reassure you, just remember the first 3 properties are 40, 14, 20 and 28. Now let's change it from high to low to, basically we are going to trigger another change event. So let's now select low to high and let's go back. So these 2 are the previous change events because of the previous change events, and these 2 are now because of the new change event that got triggered. Now select them. Now this one says the first property is 3, then second is 16 and the third is 26. If you compare it with the previous one, the first property was 14, 20, 28. So clearly the sorting logic is working. But now you must be wondering why we are receiving the same data for before and after console logs. Well, the reason is that the console log actually gets the reference to this array. When we are performing the sorting, we are performing in-memory sorting. So what this means is the sorting is being performed inline. That means not new array is being created for the sort. But for the console log, it never gets the snapshot of the current state of the array. Rather, it gets the reference of the array. So by the time the console log displays the data, since it's actually pointing to the same reference, so we are seeing the in-memory sorted state of the data. I hope this is clear. Now we can move on further. So now we are able to successfully sort the data. All we have to do is make sure this data is displayed in the browser as well. So if you notice over here, even though we are changing the value, but the cards doesn't get changed. This is because we have not yet updated the DOM. So now we have to create this whole card dynamically through the JavaScript, and then we have to reinsert them back into the browser, into the DOM tree. So, and since we are not using this, so let's comment this out for the time being. Let's clean up the data. This as well. Okay, so the data has been sorted. Now create cards, property cards, and update web page. So to create the card, let's go to the macro, because over here we were creating the card through the macro card. Okay, so this is this is the whole div that we have to create through JavaScript now. So we have to first of all create a div with the class name listing, and we have to attach this attribute as well. So let's start with that. Now since we have multiple cards, so that means we are going to define another function. Let's give it the name card, and let's pass in a param named property. And this will basically create the one card at a time. Let's not define the logic over here. Let's complete this logic first. So now we are assuming we have this card function which will display or define the whole logic for this one card. So back to the original sort properties function. Now once the data is sorted, we have to insert it over here, but before that we have to delete all of these cards. And since these cards are defined within a div named listing container, I think. Yeah, listing container. So we are going to get a reference to this listing container. Then we will iterate over our data, one property at a time. And within the body, we will keep calling the card function. So const listing container document.query selector listing container. First of all, we have to delete all the current cards. So listing container dot inner HTML equals empty. Basically delete everything. Let's see if it works. So refresh. Now the moment I will trigger the change event, then these cards will get deleted. Yeah, so far the logic is working fine. Now we are going to iterate over our data. So data.forEach property. We are passing one element or one property at a time to this arrow function, and we are going to say listing container dot append child, and we are passing this property. Append child, and then we are calling the card function and we are passing this property. So we are iterating over data one property at a time, and then we are appending whatever we receive over here as a child to this listing container. So this property is supposed to return us the whole card which represents one property. So we will attach that to this listing container. Okay, so currently our card is empty. So now we are going to work on this card function. So we have to create a div with the class name listing. So const listing equals document.createElement named div listing.class name. Let's give it the class name listing as well. So this div has a class name listing and one attribute named getPropertyDetails. So listing dot set attribute. The name of the attribute is onClick and its value is getPropertyDetails. So I don't happen to recall what this thing is called, this character is called, but basically if you have dynamic string, some string with some dynamic data or some variables in it, you go with this syntax. Instead of quotations, you go with this thing. I don't happen to recall what this character is called at the moment. So getPropertyDetails is the name of the function. GetPropertyDetails, it takes one parameter, which is the property ID. So we are going to pass that $, and this is through this we are going to pass the variable. So the variable is property dot property ID. Okay, so now we have to create this div's first child, which is going to be the image of the card. So const image is document.createElement. The element is image as well. Then image.source is going to be, again, these, I don't know what this thing is called. It's annoying me. Just wait, let me search for the name of these things. Okay, so this symbol is called backtick. Okay, so in backtick, the first part is going to be the string. So it's going to be /realtor backend, then public, then assets. Then we have a folder named images, and then comes the name of the image, which is in the property.image URL. Okay, now we have to attach this image element to this listing. So listing.append child, this image child. So let's check if the logic that we have defined so far is working. So if the logic so far is working, then when we trigger the change event, the cards which were displaying everything will disappear and the new cards will appear, which will only have images in it, no text in it. So let's refresh first. So this is the current state. Now let's trigger some change event. Nothing. So there is definitely something wrong. Oh, the thing that is wrong is we are calling this card function over here. So whatever gets returned gets appended to this listing container. But if you notice, this card function is not returning anything. So that means at the end, we will be returning the, what are we, listing div, this div. Okay, so refresh. Now trigger some event and still nothing. Okay, so we got localhost, realtor hyphen backend public assets. Oh, images, IMA. A is missing from the images. REALTOR. Refresh, trigger the change event. Okay, so now this time we aren't getting any error, so that means there is something definitely wrong with the logic. Let's inspect the page first. So we are getting the div attached. Okay, got it. So the thing is this, let's go up at the script.js. Let's look for the observer. Okay, so we have defined intersection observers for the listings as well over here. So for the listings, we are defining the intersection. We are letting the intersection observer to keep observing those cards. Once they get visible for the very first time in the browser, make them visible. So by default, the cards are invisible. Then we are asking the observer to make them visible once they very first time appear in the browser. That logic is defined over here by attaching the show class to the listing div. But then we are saying that start unobserving them. So that means if we go down the page and then go back up, this logic will not work. But what happens is that when we refresh, when we display this page for the very first time, that logic is working perfectly fine. But when we click on the change event, the change event is first of all deleting everything from the listing container div. So therefore, the cards gets invisible as well. Their default view is invisible. So when through JavaScript, if we try to reattach the images again, the cards again, then even though the cards have been attached, but their display properties is still invisible. And because now the intersection observer is not observing them, that means that show class never gets attached to this listing div. As a result, the cards are never visible. So what we are going to do is that before returning the listing, what we can say is observer.observe listing. Now we are once again asking the intersection observer to start observing it. And the next time when the listing or the property card is inserted into the page again, it will again attach the show class to it as well. Fingers crossed. Let's check it out in the browser. Let's refresh. Yes. Okay, so it's working fine. Okay, so now we can move on and define the rest of the contents for each div. Okay, so after this image, we have another div for to let or to buy. Okay, so we have to create another div and attach it to the listing div. So listing type div, document dot create element, div, if property dot listing type equals rental. In that case, listing type div dot class name equals to let, and listing type div dot text content equals to let. Okay, so this is the div we are creating, class name to let, and these are the text contents. Okay. Else, copy paste them over here and change it to buy. Property image, and this is the listing type buy or rental. Okay. So now we've got the div. Now we have to attach it to the listing div. So listing dot append child listing div type. Let's refresh, trigger the change event, and to buy. Okay, good. Then what we have to do next is we are going to define h3. Okay. Property name. Const h3 is document dot create element h3 dot text content equals property dot property name. Then listing dot append child h3. Refresh, trigger change event. Okay, we are on the rent, but we are seeing green over here. Why? Let's make it capital. Okay. We have to be careful with the names, the column names. Okay. Property name. So where were we? We are. Okay. H3 has been successfully attached. Now we have 3 paragraphs, and each paragraph has one span as well. So we are going to create a helper function. Otherwise, we will have to repeat the logic for everything. Now we will create just one function, which will insert a paragraph and a span, and then we will call that function 3 times. No, how many times do we have to call it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times. Okay. Let's come out of this card function and create another function. This is helper function to create card paragraphs. Okay. Create info para. Let's pass in 2 values, label and value. Const p document dot create element paragraph p dot inner html equals backtick span closing span tag. In between, let's place in the variable label followed by colon, and then outside these spans, value variable, return p. Now let's go back up after the h3. Let's put in city. So listing dot append child create info para. To that we have to pass in keyword city. The first label is city, and then property dot city. Copy paste it 4 times. After city comes property type. Property type. Then comes area. Size SQFT. Then bedrooms. Property dot bedrooms. Then bathrooms. property dot bathrooms. Let's test the logic so far. Let's trigger some change event. Okay, so we are getting city, type, area, bedrooms, and bathrooms. Now we only have one, I think, div left, which is this rent or price, depending on what kind of properties we are visiting. Price, rent, div. Let's go up. Let's copy this if-else statement. So copy and paste it over here. If property.listing type is rental, then we have to first of all create a div const price area document dot create element div. Then price area dot class name is rent, and price area dot inner HTML is, we have to use backtick again, span, and this is closing span in between rent, then at the end property dot rent. Now we are going to attach another $sign, or let's put in the pound sign to display the price symbol as well. Okay, let's copy this part and replace everything in this else block by pasting what we copied. So now over here price area dot class name is going to be by, and price area dot inner HTML over here it is going to be price and property dot price. Okay, now it's outside this if else block, listing dot append child price area. Let's refresh, click the change event. Okay, there's something wrong. Class name rent. Let's go and check the macro. Okay, so this is also a paragraph. Okay, so I've created a div, that's why the styles were not being applied. So let's create a paragraph, some space. Let's refresh, change event, and yeah, this is fine now. It's working just fine. Okay, so now we have to verify if the sorting is working fine. So we have selected bedrooms low to high. So this is bedroom 1, 1, 1, bedroom 1, 1, 2. Yeah, so bedroom logic is working. Let's select high to low. So bedroom 3, and let's go down. This is bedroom 1. Okay. Page up. Now price high to low. So price is 2000, 1800, 1800, 1300, 1200. Okay. So price low to high. 1000, 1100, 1200, 2000. Something wrong. Okay, so 10,000, 1100, 1200. Let's go down. 1200, 1300, 1300, 14, 17, 18, 18, 2000. Yeah. Okay, so everything is working fine. Okay, so now we are done with the sorting logic. Now for the searching one, we will defer it to the next video. In the meantime, do not forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share my videos. Happy coding!